Hiya, welcome to my little video around polycystic ovarian syndrome, also known as PCOS. I wanted to do a little video just to talk through my experience really, how I was diagnosed, when I was diagnosed, and the journey that I've been on since diagnosis. It's been quite a long journey, and there's been a lot of bumps along the way. So I just wanted to get a little bit more awareness out there really, around actually a condition that affects quite a few ladies. And I don't honestly think it's spoken about enough, and I don't know that people know that there's a lot of help out there. The internet is brilliant, there is loads of stuff on the internet, but it can be a bit of a minefield, and particularly when you're going through it, it's quite difficult to kind of understand all of the characteristics of polycystic ovaries, because there are so many and you don't get all of them. I'm really lucky. I seem to have had most of the characteristics that come along with polycystic ovaries. So over the years, there's been a number of things that I've tried, different things. There is still loads of things I can try. So, you know, it's never ending, and I will keep going. So I suppose I'll start my story by my diagnosis. So I was diagnosed with polycystic ovaries in 2000, so nearly 20 years ago now. I was 19 years old, you know, just out there doing my thing. And I had irregular periods. That was how it all kind of started for me. So I could pretty much go 4 or 5 months, 6 months with no cycle at all. Started my periods just before my 14th birthday, and from then they were just erratic all the time. Went to the doctor. The doctor said, you know, this is just your cycle, your body's trying to normalise itself, it's getting used to, you know, going into adulthood. You know, come back, you know, if it still carries on. I went back a few times to say, you know, still not really having regular periods, etc. I then started dating my first boyfriend, so taking precautions. I went onto the contraceptive pill when I was 16, and from there I was getting a regular period, so I thought happy days, everything's fine. Obviously not realizing at the time, naively, that actually the pill produces a, you know, not an organic period, shall we say. So it was getting my body to do something that naturally it wasn't doing. So then there was, I don't know if anyone will remember this, if you're too young to remember this because it was 20 years ago, but some people might remember it. The contraceptive pill I was on, I can't remember the name of it now, it began with an F. They pulled it from the market because of issues with thrombosis, etc. So I decided that I would take myself off of it and just see what happens. So when I was 19, I decided to come off of it, and then after sort of 6 months, again, no period, and went to the doctor. The doctor said, it's because you've been on the contraceptive pill, your body's trying to regulate itself again. Okay, great. So waited another period of time. I was getting really bad cramps, just awful, you know, getting bad belly. I was putting on weight around my tummy, which, you know, isn't a huge thing, but at sort of 19 coming up to 20, I was getting a bit concerned about what was going on. So I made an appointment for the doctor, and actually it turned out to be a locum, and this lady was absolutely fabulous. She asked me if I'd been investigated before, had I had scans, etc. I said no. So that was it, boom, she sorted out everything. I went for scans, blood tests, everything. So the diagnosis came from the scan that I had. So I went to have an ultrasound, and they asked me at the time, they said, have you, you know, had excess weight gain or weight loss? Well, funnily enough, at the time, I think I must have gone for the ultrasound probably early January time in 2000. And the year before that, I'd actually gone on holiday. I'd weighed myself before I went on holiday, so I think we went at the end of September. So sort of around about the beginning of September, I was just over 9 stone, which is fine for me. That wasn't me being overweight or anything, that was just a nice weight. I went on holiday, came back, and I got really ill. I had a really bad urine infection, and on top of that I had a massive bleed, which was great. Yeah, that's just what you need when you're suffering with a urine infection, and then all of a sudden you get a bleed because you haven't had a period for like over 7 months. So yeah, so I literally was laid up in bed for a week. this is absolutely no word of a lie. I literally got up out of bed and my mum didn't even recognise me. I had lost so much weight. I think I then weighed myself a few weeks later and I was just 7 stone. I'd lost the weight literally, it really was within weeks. So I told the nurse this, and she sort of said, oh, yeah, that sounds quite, you know, familiar. So I was like, okay, what does this mean? So anyway, she wrote down all of these fancy words and numbers and everything, and I couldn't understand it. She said, you know, you need to make an appointment to see a doctor. At the time, my boyfriend's dad was a nurse, so when I got home, I showed him it, and he was explaining to me that they had like 5 millimeters this and blah 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 blah, and it was all to do with the ovaries and these tiny little sort of hairs that you have that sort of move the egg down over ovulation. Mine apparently aren't long enough. So yeah, there was all these kind of things going through my head, like what on earth does this mean, you know? So I went back to my doctor, who was absolutely fantastic. He was at the Whittington Hospital at the time, an absolutely lovely doctor. And he explained to me that from the results, I had something called polycystic ovarian syndrome. Having never heard of this before in my life, neither had my mum, we were trying to understand what does this mean. So I then had to go on to this like sort of program where I had to have blood tests. I think it was every 3 to 5 days. This was following taking a tablet, which I think is the Provera tablet, but I'll come on to that in another video around the medication that I've had over the years. But I believe it was the Provera, so you may have heard of that. That helps the body to bring on a bleed. So I had to take that, and then for sort of 2 months I had to have these every 3 to 5 days blood tests. Luckily, I lived across the road from the hospital, so that was handy. So I did this, took the Provera for a week, had a period, fantastic. What they then wanted to happen was no Provera, and the following month have another cycle. You know, your body's getting going, fantastic. And that happened. So, you know, me and my mum, very excited. I was like, oh my God, yeah, it's worked, amazing. Obviously during this time, the blood tests are still going on. So I went back to the doctors with my mum a couple of months later. He asked me what was going on, explained to him, all happy. He said, oh, that's very, very strange. So I said, well, why is that? And he said, well, he got out this lovely big chart, and he said, you know, he held it sort of up. I haven't got a chart, but he sort of held it up, and he said, you know, with hormones, a lady sort of levels out through the month. When you're due to come on, you go up, then you go across. Whilst you're on your period with your hormones, that's my dog coming in the room, and then you go back down to normal. So I said, okay, great. He said, no, but you went straight across the bottom. There was no ovulating, there was no hormone increase, nothing. So I thought, well, that's pretty weird. Like, I don't really understand what's happened there. So I'm just gonna shut this door. And so then he said, from the scan that I'd had, obviously all my eggs were there, but a lot of them were either empty, the sacs, or damaged. So he sort of said, I think I was approaching 21 then, and he sort of said, you know, you're going to have trouble conceiving, you're going to need extra help. And I was devastated. I'm not going to lie. At that time, you kind of, you know, yes, it was very young, but it was something that I knew I wanted a family, and all of a sudden I'm being told, you know, this may not happen, or if it does happen, it's going to be, you know, you're going to need help. And at this point, you know, we go on now, you're talking about 20 years on, you know, there's so much more information out there about IVF, all these different treatments that you can have to have children. But you're going back 20 years ago, as a 20-year-old female, I was just like, my mind was blown. I'm one of 7 children, so, you know, my mum and dad, and my mum particularly is very, very fertile, obviously. And that's great. And I've come from a big family, so it was kind of like, well, what do you mean? Like, you know, I'm going to struggle to have a family. You know, this is just my life plan. That's what I planned. So it kind of changed from there for me. So yeah, so that was when I was diagnosed. And I suppose probably just to touch on the end of this video, is kind of like, what is it? What does it do? So there's so many different elements to polycystic ovaries. Obviously you've got the infertility issues. So, you know, the ovulation, having a cycle, etc. You have weight gain, weight loss issues. That's all to do with your insulin levels. You have excess excess hair growth on your body. I do have that, and I'm going to go over that in another video. You'll see behind me I've got lots of makeup. I'm actually a makeup artist, and actually part of the polycystic ovaries, that side of it with the hair, facial hair, is what kind of probably drove me a little bit more to sort of getting a bit more involved in makeup, because I need to constantly cover up stuff. Acne all over the body, on the face, mood swings. I think my husband will definitely agree with me when I say I have some very bad mood swings. There are a host of things that come with it, and like I say, it's a bit of a minefield out there, but there is a lot of information out there. But what I'm going to try and do with these videos is just give you my experience and just try and help people. If I can try and help somebody along the way, fantastic. I'm very open. I will take questions. I've been through so much over the last 20 years that I'm quite happy to share anything or help anyone in any way that I can. Everybody with polycystic ovaries will be at different levels. You know, I'm approaching 40 now, so you know, my body's now changing again, I suppose. Maybe the change is coming, who knows? But just, I suppose, to finish off this video, my first video, and I hope it's been helpful, just an introduction to me and polycystic ovaries. So just a little bit of, I suppose, background on what polycystic ovaries is. What does it do? So essentially what it does is it does stop you a lot of the time from ovulating properly. Now what we'll know is because is your pancreas produces insulin for your body. Okay, if you have polycystic ovaries, you tend to be insulin resistant. So what that means is your body, or your pancreas, then produces more to compensate for that. On the flip side, what the overcompensation of insulin does is produces too much of a high level of testosterone, which then affects your ovaries. What that then does is it stops the ovaries from working properly, therefore it's not producing the follicles that it should, and it actually starts to damage the follicles. So what it does is your sacs, so what the doctor told me, they're either damaged or empty. So what they will do is they just don't develop properly, so therefore even if you release them through the month, then they'll never be able to be fertilized. So that's just a really small sort of quick, this is what polycystic ovaries is essentially, in sort of layman's terms really, because like I said, there's loads of information out there. I will go through step by step the things that I've been through, so my hair treatments, skin treatments, fertility treatments, mood swings, depression. There's a whole heap of stuff that goes along with this beautiful thing that is polycystic ovaries. So stick with me. If you like the content of this video so far, subscribe below. I'm going to be posting videos throughout, especially October, as it's polycystic ovarian syndrome awareness month, and just trying to help people. Let's just to raise a little bit more awareness and let people know that there's somebody listening. Take care, and like I say, if you like it, subscribe below. Take care, bye.